Hello and welcome to Cumberland Conversations. I'm Sally Shutt, Cumberland County's Public Information Director. This month our conversation will focus on summer safety. In our first segment we'll be looking at staying safe outdoors, and our guests are Cape Fear Valley Emergency Medical Services Director Brian Pearce and Cumberland County Environmental Health Director Daniel Ortiz. Daniel, Brian, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Let's start out by looking at those heat-related injuries, Brian. So what symptoms should we be observant of as we're out there?
Well, what we would particularly look for is dizziness, somebody who begins acting a little bit differently, if you feel really tired. Actually, a bad symbol is if you stop sweating. If you've been sweating and you stop, those are all signs that you may be experiencing a heat-related emergency.
Okay, and how quickly, if you've been out in the heat, how quickly can the heat have an effect on a person?
During the summers here, it can happen in as little as 10 minutes, particularly for people who have medical conditions or elderly or young children.
Mm-hmm. So as emergency medical services, how your runs, do you get a lot of calls during the summer?
Absolutely. Typically during the winter for environmental emergency calls, we only have a couple per month, and then during the summertime, typically we would have as many as one or two a day.
Okay. So if you see someone who is having those symptoms like you mentioned, what should we do?
Well, one of the things you mentioned that's very important is seeing somebody. So particularly in the really hot days, make sure that you're in pairs or that you've got family members or loved ones with you so that they can observe your behavior and make sure that you're not out working or getting too hot. But the first thing to do is to bring them inside, make sure that you give them plenty of cool water, and then if the symptoms don't go away or they begin experiencing any other emergency symptoms, to contact 911 or contact a physician and take them to an urgent care or a hospital.
And then those tips you mentioned, drinking water. What are some other tips that we should follow when we're out, whether gardening or playing ball or just walking around the neighborhood?
Well, first off is really to pay attention to the environmental conditions. As it gets hot in the summer, then as little as 10 minutes could really cause you problems. So make sure that on days that it's that hot that you limit your exposure, drink plenty of water, and so that you stay well hydrated, take plenty of breaks, wear lightweight clothing so that you maintain a cool temperature with your body, wear plenty of sunscreen, and then pace yourself. Don't get in too much. Sometimes people will start experiencing the heat-related emergencies before they even realize it, and it's gone too far.
Yeah, and in the summer here, the summer's in Cumberland County. How high do we normally go?
Typically, it will get several days over 100 degrees. I think 1 or 2 summers ago, we had a string of 20 or 30 days in a row where it was over 100 degrees every day with a really high humidity, which is very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Daniel, in addition to the heat, we also have those pesky insects are out there, and so mosquitoes and fire ants and such. So what are some of the health risks that those insects pose?
Well, first of all, you want to talk about the fire ants, and if you see any fire ants around your yard, you want to make sure you treat that with an approved fire ant killer. You don't want to be walking around your yard and find yourself standing on a fire ant mound. You're going to have a really bad day. But the health effects could be mild to severe. If you see swelling or redness, you could be having an allergic reaction to the fire ants, and you need to seek medical attention as soon as possible. We also want to mention some of the spiders we have here in North Carolina, and that would be the black widow spider and the brown recluse. If you're bitten by either one of these spiders, you need to seek medical emergency people immediately because they are poisonous. Also, if you're going to be out in the yard or out in the woods hiking or whatever activities you may be doing, you've got to be aware of the ticks. You don't want to feed the ticks because they can pose a health issue as far as Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Lyme's disease, and the only way that you can contract these diseases would be if you have a tick that's attached. And the tick has to be attached for several hours. So the most important thing is if you find one on you, to make sure that you put it pulled off as soon as possible. And you want to use proper procedures in pulling the tick off as well. You don't want to squeeze it and pull it directly off. You want to use a pair of tweezers and pull at the head and pull directly out, because if you squeeze on the tick, you could be pushing disease into your system. So you want to be able to protect yourself, and the best way to protect yourself is to use an approved insect repellent. Also, I want to talk about mosquitoes. Mosquitoes carry diseases from West Nile virus to encephalitis and several other, but those are the two primary that we are concerned with. Here in Cumberland County, we recommend the tip and toss method, and that can be used to eliminate breeding harborages for them, and we want to make sure that you're wearing the proper protection.
Okay, so when you say tip and toss, what are we supposed to be tipping and tossing, Daniel?
The tip and toss is basically if you see any standing water in your yard and you're able to tip it over, that's great. If you see anything in your yard that could possibly collect water and it's something that you don't need, toss it away, put it in the trash. It's clutter and it's a breeding harborage.
Now, citizens often, will ask, well, what are you doing? What is the local government? What's our community doing to help prevent these mosquitoes? So talk a little bit about a program that the health department started last year with Mosquito Dunks.
The Mosquito Dunks is a round donut-shaped larvicide. We started giving away last year, like you said, and we've got funds from the state and the county to purchase these. And we give out a 4-month supply at the health department on 3rd floor environmental health. And this year we'll be actually extending the hours on Tuesdays to 7 o'clock. But the Mosquito Dunks break the life cycle of the mosquitoes so they don't reach the biting adult stage. And you can put that in any areas that has standing water, such as road ditches, ponds, bird baths, any place that you can't readily tip over. And they're effective for 30 days. And they're environmentally friendly, pet safe, won't harm the birds or your fish.
Okay, great. And we'll get that information out to the citizens, and they can go by and tell them where the health department's located.
We're at 1235 Ramsey Street. It's right across from DSS. And just go upstairs to the 3rd floor to environmental health, and we'll be more than happy to give you a 4-month supply.
Okay, so we've covered insects, mosquitoes, and fire ants, and things like that. What are some other environmental hazards during the summer when people are out and about?
Well, a lot of folks love to have a cookout or barbecue or vacation, and food safety is very important. We want to make sure that we're keeping hot foods hot and cold food cold. The internal cook temperature of chicken, pork, and beef, we want to make sure that the chicken reaches a cook temperature of 165 degrees. Pork needs to be a cook temperature of 155 and beef at 135. And the best way to test this is to use a metal top thermometer. That way you can get an internal temperature. They're very handy, but the most important part of food safety is washing your hands. If you don't have a means to wash your hands outside, a good measure is to use hand sanitizer. But many foodborne illnesses can be prevented by just washing your hands.
Also, people are out swimming, and I know they should be very cautious to check out a swimming pool before they actually dive in. Tell me a little bit of some suggestions for parents and other swimmers.
Oh yes, public swimming pools are very important this time of year. You want to remember that you're not to allow your children to go swimming without an adult present. Also, you don't want to swim alone, because if something were to happen, who's going to be there to help you or call for 911? Most of your swimming pools or public swimming pools are inspected by the Cumberland County Health Department. And so each one has an emergency phone on site. That way, if there is an emergency, you can call. But every site will have a rules board up on the fence. And you need to follow the rules, because if this says no diving, there's a really good reason for it, because it's probably shallow and we don't want anyone to get hurt.
Okay. And how about other swimming outlets, the river, ponds and streams? What type of advice would you give?
Ponds, streams, rivers, you want to make sure that you're with a group, because if you go swimming by yourself, something could happen. You want to make sure you have a telephone with you, which pretty much everyone has a cell phone these days, but you want to know where you're located. That way, if there is an emergency, you can give that information to emergency services. That way, if there is an issue or an emergency, they can find you out in that area. You want to make sure that when you're out there, you do bring some hand sanitizer, because most of your lakes and streams, they do have bacteria, and if you have any open wounds, you want to make sure you keep those covered as well, because you don't want any type of infection to occur.
Okay. Brian, any additional comments on as our citizens are out enjoying this heat and the outdoors? They're about playing sports. Daniel mentioned cooking out. So, what other advice do you'd like to share?
Well, I would just, to add on what he was saying, we experienced an increase in number of injuries with grills or outdoor fires, so to be particularly careful and use safety around any fire or propane grills. And then also we've had a number of drowning deaths in the past couple of years with the rivers. And I think that's because of the increased rain we've had, and the rivers are becoming more and more dangerous. And even though it may not seem that dangerous when you look at it, there's a lot of current, and it's very quick to drag people under, and it's caused several drowning deaths over the past couple of years. So be careful around moving water.
Moving water as well. Okay, and also we have a few more minutes. How about safety for your pets? Sometimes do you get calls where pets have been left in cars or?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up. Not just pets, but children or adults in general staying in a car. A car can raise as much as 10 degrees within the first 10 minutes that it's closed. And if it stays closed up for an hour, its temperature would be approximately 120 degrees, even if you leave the windows down. So obviously, even leaving somebody, a child or a pet in the car for a few minutes just to run in a gas station may end up being deadly for that pet or that small child.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. And they should definitely call 911 if they see.
Absolutely. And if you notice that in a area, even if it's not your car and the doors are locked, if you'll contact 911, then the fire department or the EMS service will be happy to come in and help to open the car so that we can make sure that the occupants are safe inside.
Okay. So Daniel, any final words that you'd like to give our citizens regarding staying safe this summer?
Oh yes, personal protection is very important. So a good insect repellent will help with ticks. It would also help with mosquitoes. And when you're talking about insects, you have to remember that when you're outside, you're in their environment. So make sure you protect yourself. And also when you're out swimming, you need to make sure you're wearing your sunscreen because it can turn a good day to a bad weekend very quick.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but the long-term effects of all that sun exposure.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed learning about outdoor safety. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll look at traveling and vacations. So we hope that you'll stay with us and join us in just a few moments. Welcome back to Cumberland Conversations and our look at summer safety. During this segment, Cape Fear Valley Emergency Medical Services Director Brian Pearce and Lieutenant Robert Dicke of the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office will share tips on traveling, including how to protect your home while you're away. Brian, do you see an increase in traffic accidents during the summer?
Typically, traffic accidents are pretty consistent throughout the entire year, but obviously when more people are on the road, holidays, vacations, there is an increase in traffic accidents during those times.
Okay. And so what do you think are some of those contributing factors?
Well, just the number of people, and then the other thing is a lot of times people become impatient. They're ready to get on their vacation. They've worked hard so that they can have some time off. And I would just encourage people to plan ahead, know where that they're going, be cautious in their driving, make sure to take their time, not to get too impatient with traffic jams, and most importantly, to wear your seatbelts.
Now you mentioned, to plan out where you're going so they don't then have that cell phone or looking at the GPS. So talk about distracted driving.
Yeah, absolutely. Distracted driving is becoming more and more of a problem. And if it has not already, probably will surpass fatalities due to drinking and driving. It's a huge problem among kids nowadays, and most people don't realize that just taking your eyes off of the road for a few seconds may cause you to change lanes or be involved in a crash that would actually take yours or somebody else's life.
How about sleep depression? not getting enough sleep, drivers who are trying to, log too many miles.
Absolutely, and we would see that more during the holidays also, because somebody driving, especially as the economy has been bad recently, more and more people have been driving instead of flying, and they may make those extended trips, which would cause them to be sleep deprived as they were on the road. So make sure they plan out their trips, plan stops in between, rest adequately, have enough drivers so that they can make it to their vacation and back home safely.
Okay. Now, Lieutenant Dicke, you're with the community, you're in charge of community policing in our county.
Yes, ma'am.
As our citizens are getting ready to leave, they're planning their trips, but what should they be planning for around their homes to protect their homes and property?
Normally what you do when you have all of your going on your vacation is let your neighbors know. There's ways you can do secure your house while you're gone. A lot of it's just common sense sort of things you can do. For instance, have someone pick up your mail or have your mail stopped at the post office. Same thing with your newspaper delivery. You want to have someone to maintain your yard, because if you go through the neighborhood, you can see who's out of town, vacant houses and things of that nature. And you want to secure your house with deadbolt locks. Some people just have chains on the doors or just a doorknob, but they're easy to jimmy and to get into the houses. And you also want to have lighting around your house. Keep the bushes and hedges trimmed around your windows and doors and things like that. And it's a good idea to, around the bottom of your windows on the outside, put your gravel outside the window. It's a good idea because when people step on the gravel, it's going to make some noise. It sort of gives you something's out there instead of just having dirt or something there. And you don't want the bushes and hedges covering your windows. And fences. Everybody loves to have their privacy fence in the backyard. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, having a privacy fence, if you have neighbors on the backside, they can't see what's going on behind your house. A lot of the break-ins that we have in Cumberland County, they will knock on the front door, no one answers, and they go around to the back and they break in. But with a privacy fence back there, it's hard for the neighbors to keep an eye on your house. And one of the best things to have as far as during the summertime would be part of a community watch within your neighborhood. Like I tell the communities I go to, if I drive through your neighborhood, I got one set of eyes driving through the whole neighborhood. If you got 50 community watch members out there, that's 50 sets of eyes out there looking to see what's going on. And you always want to leave at least somebody you can trust with the keys to your residence. If something was to happen, law enforcement gets there, you're out of town, the law enforcement may have to get inside the house. If we have a contact person who has a key to get in there, that would be great. And one of the services that the sheriff's office does offer as far as community policing, if you are out of town, if you call the watch commander's desk down at the sheriff's office and put your house on an area check, in between shifts, in between calls, the deputies, when they have time, will go by the house and pull on your doors, check your windows, and just make sure everything is secure around your residence. And also, when they do take the information from you, they'll get your name and a point of contact, a phone number that they can call if they do find anything that looks out of place at your residence.
Okay, and so what phone number should they call if they'd like to?
You can call the watch commander's desk down at the sheriff's office, which is 677-5432. And when you talk to the watch commander, just tell them you need to put your house on an area check.
Okay, area check is the
Yes,
key
ma'am.
term to
Yes,
use
ma'am.
on that one. Well, great. Now, social media is so big now, and I know that you've told me before that there's a common mistake that people make, putting too much personal information out there.
Yes, Facebook, it could be a good thing and a bad thing. Some people on Facebook, vacation is coming and we're going to the beach. Well, they put it on social media, and then the criminals out there, they're looking at the same thing that everyone else is looking at. Oh, they're going out of town for a week. They're going to the beach. You're sort of putting it out. You're putting your news out, what's going on. If you're going to the beach, go to the beach. When you come back, put your information out there. And, we went to the beach, we had a good time. These are our pictures.
So,
you don't let everybody know where you're going at the time.
Okay. All right. So anything else you'd like to add to remind the citizens on how to protect their homes and property?
like I said, the biggest thing is a community watch. I mean, I can't stress it more than enough, because the community watch is the eyes and ears for law enforcement. I mean, we can't do it all by ourselves. Not every deputy lives in every neighborhood. So the people that live there, they know what goes on. They know what's out of place. They know who stays, who don't. If you get a community watch started, it helps us out immensely, and also is there to help you to pull up the value of your neighborhood for your neighbors to keep an eye on you also.
Okay, great. Well, Brian, we mentioned traveling on the road, but people are also out boating during the summer and, out all different type of various sports. So I know the emergency room must see a lot of, sprained ankles and different types of accidents. Tell me about some safety tips while you're boating and being just active.
Well, the most important thing with any activity that you're planning is to use the appropriate safety equipment for that activity. So if you're going to go boating or even swimming with small kids or around the water, then make sure you've got life jackets or appropriate gear that would protect somebody from drowning. Make sure that there's adult supervision so that there are people to oversee the activities that are going on. And the same thing as far as sports. Make sure that helmets are worn. We do see an increase in all-terrain vehicle accidents. A lot of people out riding four-wheelers and motorcycles, and a lot of times those accidents are much more severe when people are not wearing the appropriate helmets or appropriate protective gear. So whatever activity they're doing, just make sure that they're wearing helmets and protective gear. Should they be involved in an accident, it may cause it to be much less severe than it could have been.
Okay, and Brian, you're with the hospital, which has the blood donor center, and I know summer can be kind of a slow time for blood donations, but a very busy time on those who need to receive the transfusions. So, what can you tell me about the blood donation?
Absolutely, you just summed it up very well. There is an increase in traumatic injuries and vehicle accidents during the summertime and the holidays, but at the same time, a lot of the people who typically would donate blood are out of town on vacations and become busy. So while the injuries and the need go up, the supply goes down. So it's very important for people when they're off to hopefully make time. Go by the blood donor center. It's right there on Village Drive across from the hospital, and take a few minutes of their vacation to donate blood and hopefully help somebody else out.
Okay. Do you have to increase staffing during the summer? Either of you, say the sheriff's office, do you have increased patrols for
Yes,
the
they
summer?
do. Due to the fact that the schools are out, we have school resource officers, but since there is no school, they are out on the road also, because you have a lot of high school kids that are out there with nothing to do. They get to walk in the neighborhood and they'll get into mischief. So the sheriff's office does put school resource officers out there with the road patrol to increase patrols during the summer months. Like I said, because the schools are closed, they need a job, they need to keep working.
And how about you, Brian? Do you have increased number of calls or anything?
Typically our call volume is pretty consistent throughout the year, but we do notice increases with holidays, different travel times, and then there is a lot of festivals like the marathon we recently had, the Dogwood Festival. So at all of those events, we will typically try to increase staffing or put a dedicated team of paramedics that would help out at those festivals or events. And a lot of times we'll actually use paramedics on bicycles or ATVs so that they could quickly access and treat emergencies right there at the event.
I guess 4th of July is like the biggest one. You'll have the big 4th of July celebration at Fort Bragg, of course, but fireworks. Do you see injuries from those?
We do actually see an increase in injuries dealing with fireworks, specifically around 4th of July, and it goes back to the same thing I was talking about earlier, making sure adults are around, making sure that they're using legal fireworks, and making sure that they're taking appropriate safety considerations and following directions on any packages of fireworks that they may be utilizing.
Okay, well, as we're nearing the end of this, is there anything that you'd like to add, Lieutenant Dicke?
I would just like to say piggyback on what Brian was saying about travel safety. One of the biggest things is seat belts. Last May at this time, there was more fatalities due to the fact people were not wearing seat belts. When you get in, make sure you wear your seat belts. Your kids are properly restrained at a proper seat. If it's broken or defective, get a new one. You know, you might save the child's life. And like he also said, one of the biggest things is people get in a hurry. They need to get a good night's rest before they travel. Oh, you know, don't tailgate. Don't fall too closely. You see it all the time people rubbernecking. You think there's an accident in your lane, and everyone's got to look and see what's going on, and then they end up getting an accident. But you know, be aware of your surroundings out on the highway. I said, don't follow too closely. Maintain your speed. Don't be the one that's in and out of traffic, because you'll end up causing an accident that way also.
Okay. Brian, how about you? Any final words for our citizens?
Well, I just want to follow up on the main theme of prevention. We have an excellent staff of well-trained paramedics that are ready to care for any emergencies should you need it. But all of our staff would much rather people use the appropriate precautions, sunscreen, helmets, seat belts, limit their exposure during the hot days, drink plenty of fluid, and hopefully be able to enjoy their holidays without needing the paramedics or the emergency room. But we'll be there if they do need us.
And we're thankful for that. And thank you both for being here and sharing with our citizens all of these great tips on how to stay safe this summer. Thank you for joining us today and sitting in on our conversation. We hope you will have a safe and healthy summer. Please join us for future Cumberland Conversations. You can learn more about what's happening in Cumberland County government by visiting our website or Facebook. We also hope you will consider enrolling in our Citizens Academy, which is offered twice each year.